When I refused to let my husband's sister borrow my car, she lied that I abused her child. "Just apologize and keep the peace," my husband warned. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "I'm making one call." The next morning, she opened her door and dropped to her knees when she saw who was there. "You pushed my son." I saw the bruises. My sister-in-law Vanessa screamed, her finger inches from my face, as our family dinner turned into a nightmare. The room fell silent. My husband Mark's face drained of color as his parents and brother stared at me in horror. "What are you talking about?" "I never touched him," I replied, genuine confusion washing over me. My nephew had been playing happily with his toys just minutes earlier. Vanessa's eyes narrowed as she pulled her son close. "Don't lie. He told me everything. The bruises on his arm prove it." She turned to the rest of the family. "I always knew she had anger issues, but this..." Her voice cracked with manufactured emotion. "This is unforgivable." As she stormed toward the door, she turned back with a final threat. "Everyone will know what kind of monster you really are." The door slammed, leaving me standing there, surrounded by accusing eyes. What they didn't know was that Vanessa had just made the biggest mistake of her life. She had no idea who she was messing with. Vanessa had always been the golden child of Mark's family. Since before our wedding 3 years ago, I'd watched her take advantage of everyone around her, especially Mark. When she needed money for her extravagant lifestyle, he gave it. When she needed babysitting at the last minute, we canceled our plans. When she damaged something she borrowed, it was somehow never her fault. Last week, she demanded to borrow my car for a beach trip with her friends. I refused because I needed it for an important work presentation that could lead to a promotion. It was the first time I'd firmly said no to her, and she didn't take it well. "It's just a car," Mark had said afterward. "You could have taken an Uber to your meeting." What Mark never understood was that his parents had trained him since childhood to keep Vanessa happy at all costs. Their father's business had required frequent moves, and Vanessa had struggled to adjust, throwing tantrums until she got her way. The pattern never stopped, even after she married and divorced within 2 years, leaving her financially dependent on family handouts. I tried helping her find a job, offered to help with her resume, even suggested affordable apartments when she complained about her horrible 2-bedroom condo. Each attempt was thrown back in my face with accusations that I was judging her lifestyle. Now, standing in my in-laws' dining room, I realized this accusation wasn't about my nephew at all. It was Vanessa's retaliation for the car. That sinking feeling when someone twists your kindness into cruelty. Have you felt it? That moment when you realize the rules are different for you than everyone else in the family? I was about to learn just how far Vanessa would go to punish me for setting one simple boundary. The next morning, my phone exploded with notifications. Vanessa had posted a close-up photo of what looked like a bruise on my nephew's arm with the caption, "Heartbroken that someone I trusted would hurt my baby. Family should be safe, not dangerous." She never named me directly, but the timing made it obvious who she meant. Within hours, my mother-in-law called. "How could you hurt an innocent child?" she demanded without even saying hello. "We raised Mark better than to marry someone like you." When I tried explaining that I'd never touched my nephew, she cut me off. Vanessa would never lie about something this serious. Mark sat silently beside me during the call, staring at the floor. When I confronted him afterward, he sighed heavily. "She's just going through a hard time with the divorce. Can't you just apologize so we can move past this?" 3 days later, we attended Mark's father's birthday dinner. I noticed immediately that my usual seat between Mark and his brother was gone. Instead, they'd placed me at the far end of the table, isolated from everyone else. During dessert, Mark's brother leaned over and whispered, "We always knew you had a temper problem. Now everyone sees it." As I helped clear dishes, I overheard Vanessa in the hallway with my nephew. "Remember what to say if anyone asks about your arm," she whispered, "just like we practiced." My blood ran cold as the pieces clicked into place. That night, Mark and I had our first real fight in 3 years of marriage. In our bedroom, he paced back and forth while I sat rigid on the edge of our bed. "Just apologize and keep the peace," my husband warned. "It doesn't matter who's right or wrong anymore. This is tearing the family apart." My hands began shaking, but my voice remained steady. I will not apologize for something I didn't do. That's insane, Mark. He ran his hands through his hair in frustration. My parents don't want you at family events until this is resolved. Mom says it's too upsetting for Vanessa and her son. The words hit me like a physical blow. And what did you say to that? His silence was answer enough. So you're choosing your sister's lies over your wife's truth? I asked quietly. I'm choosing family peace, he replied, not meeting my eyes. In that moment, I realized I was fighting this battle completely alone. The man who had promised to stand by me through anything had abandoned me at the first test. With deliberate slowness, I removed my wedding ring and placed it on the nightstand with a soft click that seemed to echo in the silent room. That moment, when you realize the person who promised to stand by you is standing with everyone else instead. What would you do? Fight back or walk away? My next decision would change everything about my marriage and my place in this family. I drove aimlessly through the night, eventually parking at the small neighborhood park where I'd played as a child. As rain pattered against the windshield, memories surfaced of another of Vanessa's manipulations. 6 months ago, she had borrowed an antique vase my grandmother left me. When it returned shattered, she claimed I had already cracked it and was trying to blame her. Mark had suggested I let it go for family harmony. Then there was Christmas, when she accused me of deliberately excluding her son from gifts, when in reality she had opened his presents early without telling anyone. Each time I enforced a boundary, an accusation followed. The pattern was suddenly crystal clear. Vanessa only targeted me because I was the only one who ever said no to her. Everyone else enabled her behavior, creating a monster who now felt entitled to destroy my reputation rather than accept a simple refusal. Sitting in that car, watching rain distort the streetlights, something shifted inside me. This wasn't about an apology anymore. This was about truth, and I would make sure everyone saw it, no matter the cost. The next morning, I called Dr. Rivera, the family therapist Mark and I had seen during our engagement. After explaining the situation, I fell silent, waiting for her response. This sounds like classic triangulation and scapegoating, she said. Vanessa is positioning you as the family villain to distract from her own issues and maintain her position as the victim who needs rescuing. How do I fight this? I asked. No one believes me. Document everything. Find objective evidence. You need something irrefutable that can't be dismissed as your word against hers. Her confidence reminded me of something I'd forgotten. You handled that crisis at work last year when your colleague tried to take credit for your project, she continued. You gathered evidence methodically and presented it calmly. This requires the same approach. As we talked, I remembered something crucial. During a barbecue last month, Vanessa's neighbor had mentioned installing security cameras after a series of car break-ins. Those cameras would have a clear view of her front yard, where I had briefly watched my nephew, while Vanessa ran inside to grab her purse. I know exactly what to do, I said, feeling hope for the first time in days. When I returned home that evening, Mark was packing a suitcase with my clothes. What are you doing? I demanded, blocking the bedroom doorway. He couldn't meet my eyes. Maybe you should stay with your sister for a while, just until things calm down. You're kicking me out of our home because of your sister's lies? I stepped forward, taking my clothes from his hands and putting them back in the drawer. Kids get bruises all the time, he said, his voice pleading. Just say it was an accident, that you didn't mean to grab him so hard. Everyone will forgive you. Something broke inside me then. Not in weakness, but in clarity. Would you want our future children to learn that lying is easier than truth? I asked quietly. Is that the family you want to build, Mark? One where false peace matters more than honesty? Doubt flickered across his face for the first time. You really didn't do it? I looked him dead in the eye and said, I'm making one call. After that, everyone will know exactly what kind of family I married into. His face paled as I grabbed my car keys and walked out, leaving him standing there with my half-packed suitcase. Vanessa's neighbor Emma seemed hesitant when I knocked on her door the next morning. I don't want to get involved in family drama, she said, starting to close the door. Please, I said. Vanessa is telling everyone I hurt her son. I need the truth. Emma paused, then sighed. She accused my dog of biting her son last year. Animal control almost took him away before another neighbor confirmed my dog was inside all day. She invited me in and pulled up the security footage from the day in question. The video clearly showed my nephew playing, then tripping over his own shoelace and falling. I helped him up, checked his arm, and he continued playing happily. Vanessa arrived 20 minutes later. But the next clip made my breath catch. It showed Vanessa's car parked down the street. Through the windshield, the camera captured her applying something to her son's arm, makeup to create a fake bruise. "There's more," Emma said quietly. "She told my husband you've been abusing Mark. Said she's seen bruises on him and that he's afraid to leave you." The room seemed to spin around me. This wasn't just about a car or a petty revenge. Vanessa was systematically trying to destroy my life. By that afternoon, I had consulted with an attorney recommended by a colleague. He confirmed I had grounds for defamation and filing a false police report, as Vanessa had apparently called them that morning. I filed my own police report, providing the video evidence and Emma's statement. The officer looked grim as he reviewed the footage. "We take false accusations very seriously," he said, "especially when they involve child abuse allegations." Next, I contacted Child Protective Services myself, explaining the situation and expressing concern about Vanessa using her son as a pawn in her vendetta. The caseworker thanked me for the proactive report and confirmed they would investigate. With the attorney's help, I compiled an evidence package: the time-stamped videos, Emma's written statement, screenshots of Vanessa's social media posts, and documentation of her previous false accusations. I deliberately didn't warn Mark. He had made his choice when he tried to pack my bags. Now he would face the consequences alongside his sister. That evening, I changed our house locks and settled in for the first peaceful night's sleep I'd had in weeks. Mark's panicked calls started at 8 a.m. "What did you do?" he demanded. "Vanessa is hysterical. She says police called her about false reporting charges." "The truth doesn't need defending," I replied calmly. "It just needs to be seen." Throughout the day, messages trickled in from Mark's family. His brother: "Is it true Vanessa made it all up?" His mother: "We had no idea she would go this far." Each message carried the same subtext. They were scrambling to distance themselves from Vanessa's actions now that evidence existed. Vanessa herself tried desperately to delete her social media posts, not realizing I had already saved screenshots of everything. She left 7 increasingly frantic voicemails, alternating between threats and tearful pleas. I ignored them all, focusing instead on preparing for the next morning. The authorities had agreed to my request to be present when they visited Vanessa. I wanted to see her face when her lies crumbled around her. That night, I slept deeply for the first time since the accusation, knowing that morning would bring the reckoning Vanessa had earned. That moment when someone who tried to destroy you realizes they've destroyed themselves instead. Have you experienced that justice? What boundaries did you have to set to protect your truth when everyone around you chose comfort over honesty? The next morning, she opened her door and dropped to her knees when she saw who was there. Me, standing between a CPS caseworker and a police officer. "Vanessa Miller?" the officer asked formally. "We're here regarding a report of knowingly filing false allegations and child endangerment through psychological manipulation." The CPS worker stepped forward. "We need to speak with your son about the coaching incident captured on video and discuss the impact of involving children in fabricated abuse claims." Vanessa's face crumpled as she realized the depth of trouble she faced. This wasn't just about family drama anymore. There were legal consequences for her actions. The family fractured in the aftermath. Some, like Mark's brother, apologized profusely for believing Vanessa. Others, particularly her parents, doubled down, insisting I had overreacted by involving authorities. Mark showed up at our door 3 days later, looking like he hadn't slept. "I failed you as a partner," he said, his voice breaking. "I should have believed you from the start. I should have stood by you." "Trust is rebuilt through actions, not words," I told him. "If you want our marriage to survive, we start with therapy, both couples and family sessions, and Vanessa is never allowed in our home again." To my surprise, Mark's mother called me privately the following week. "We've enabled her behavior for too long," she admitted. It was easier than dealing with her tantrums. I'm sorry you paid the price for our weakness. 3 months later, Mark and I are still in counseling, rebuilding our relationship brick by brick. It's slow progress, but genuine. Vanessa is facing legal consequences and mandatory parenting classes, finally experiencing accountability for perhaps the first time in her life. The question I still struggle with, the one that keeps me awake some nights, is this. Can you truly forgive someone who didn't stand by you when it mattered most? When the person who vowed to be your partner chose the easier path instead of the right one? What I've learned through all of this is that sometimes the family you choose teaches the family you were born into how to truly love you. Sometimes standing alone for truth is the only way to discover who will eventually stand beside you.